Hey, so today I kind of wanted to talk about, I feel like intersectionality is a topic that you'll hear me talk about a lot because it means so many different things and it can go in so many different ways. So today I wanted to talk about intersectionality when it comes to the Black community and how we even have blind spots in understanding that there's intersectionality within us. As mentioned before, I'm particularly attuned to this because not only am I a Black woman, but I am first generation American. My parents are from the Caribbean, Jamaican, and Haiti. So I have completely different traditions and background and than not only white Americans, but a lot of Black Americans in this country. The things I grew up eating, the things I grew up listening to. So, the joke is when someone says, oh yeah, it's not a Black party till X, Y, and Z. Sometimes I'm like, didn't have that, didn't do that. So, Black Americans sometimes can be not aware of those things. Also, in terms of immigration policy, it's really important to me the way immigration policy is structured personally because it could affect my family and my family who's currently in Haiti and or in Jamaica. But also it means something to me when someone assumes that Black people are all monolith and that we have the same beliefs and same value systems as other African Americans in this country. And it also leads to complicated questions of reparations. I know that's a conversation that's come up quite a bit, and there's some of the belief in the Black community that reparations should only happen and be given to Black Americans that can trace as best as possible their family's roots through slavery in the Americas, and that those who migrated here in the past century or so don't have access to that. In my opinion, that becomes tricky because although my family's roots are not traced through the U.S., when I'm walking down the street or my brother's walking down the street or my father or my mother, no one's saying, hey, did your family get brought here in the African slave trade to the U.S. or to Jamaica or Haiti? We're still looked at and viewed upon and treated the same way that Black Americans are treated. Black Americans meaning Black Americans who can trace their roots back all the way, through the Atlantic slave trade in the Americas. So there's a lot of complicated pieces to it. And that's one sort of section of it. The other section is how we define ourselves. So you might hear people say, I'm Afro-Caribbean, I'm Afro-Latino, I'm African, meaning I was born on the continent of Africa and I migrated here. All of those things some people consider potentially divisive, and I get that. But it also is considered a trace route back to our traditions and the things that are important to us and how we grew up. Good example of that is on my dad's side, I'm Haitian. Maiden name, as you could be very clear, is of Haitian descent. My dad speaks 3 languages fluently: Creole, French, and English. And he would tell you he's passable at Spanish. And hearing those languages growing up is part of my experience. Eating certain types of food is part of my experience. That is drastically different than what African Americans in the U.S. grew up on. Afro-Latinos, grew up speaking Spanish. But there's also lots of issues of, whether people are willing to admit that there's African ancestry in their bloodline, which in its own situation is very complicated, because when you actually look down at the breakdown of the way the African slave trade was distributed, only 4% of Africans were brought to the U.S. The rest were brought to the Caribbean and South America. So if you just do your math, everybody in the Caribbean and Central America, South America would have some sort of African DNA in their bodies. That's just DNA science and facts, but that's a whole other conversation we won't go into right now. But as you see, by far, this is the longest clip that I've had to date, and it's partially because there's so much to be said on this that I almost wonder if I should do a mini class, and I think I might. So stay tuned for that. Thanks.